This is a cab machine and this is a flat lap. Today I'm going to show you the difference between them and explain the pros and cons of each. So by the end of this video you should be a little bit more informed. Both of these machines are designed to polish rocks. You can polish them whole like this one. So this is a Petoskey stone. It started out looking kind of like that. And I just polished the one side, although I could have gone all the way around, and obviously it looks much better after polishing. Or you can make things like cabochons. So a cabochon, in case you're not familiar with it, is one of these kind of pendant rocks. It's typically flat on the back, although it can be domed there. And it's domed on the front. So you can see that's got a little dome to it. Usually it's flat around the sides. I put a groove in this one to wrap that wire around, but that's not normal. Usually they just have flat sides. So this is called a cabochon, or a cab for short. So this is called a cab machine or a cabbing machine, or sometimes it's called a cabber. So that's where that name comes from. It's just short for cabochon. This one has 6 wheels. They don't always have 6 wheels. Sometimes there's fewer. I don't think I've seen one with more, although I suppose you could put more on it. It has a disc on the end here. This is a hard flat wheel made for doing like the backs of a cab if you want to get it flat. And down here there's a polishing pad. It's got cerium oxide polish on it. And the wheels just start from hard. These are 2 hard wheels. This is coarse and a little less coarse, and they keep getting finer and finer and finer until down here they're the finest. These last 4 wheels have soft backing on them, so they help get all the flat spots out of your cabs when you're working on them. I've seen combination units where they have a saw on one end and then maybe 3 wheels on the other end. Sometimes you can even take the wheels off one end, put a saw attachment on, and then when you want to use the wheels again, you put the wheels back on. That seems like a little bit of a hassle, but some people might like that. So there's a bunch of different configurations. So I think this is typical to have 6 wheels. These are sometimes optional on the ends here. With this one, they came with it. I have 2 flat laps. This one I believe is homemade because I've never seen another one like it. And this one is GemLap brand. These were made in Michigan, I believe in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, somewhere in that time range. I've never actually used this one because I use this one all the time. This is my backup in case this one ever breaks or something. You can see that this has a motor over here. This one doesn't have a motor on it. That's why I haven't used it, because I just haven't taken the time to put it on a board and mount a motor to it. The new ones, the more modern ones, they're smaller than these, and the motor's usually mounted underneath, so you don't have an external motor, and they're quite compact. To use this, you put on a lap, a flat lap. It's flat this way, obviously. It's round here. Where the other machine, you're working on the side of the wheel, so you get kind of a rounded effect there. This one has a 60 grit wheel on it right now. This is a 220 grit. These are hard. They have a little backer plate. They're hard. These are diamond. And then as you progress through the wheels, you can have soft back wheels. So this is a homemade plywood one that I made. And you just glue this on. There's a type of glue called feathering disc adhesive that you put on, and you can peel these things off and put a new one on without ripping everything apart. But anyhow, you can use homemade stuff like this or commercial ones. This one is diamond, and this one is silicon carbide. These don't last as long, but they're really cheap. These are more expensive. They last longer. They probably do a little bit better job. So depending on what you're doing, I did a lot of Petoskey stones, and the silicon carbide lasts pretty well with Petoskey stones because they're so soft. So you can do the same things on these that you do on the other machine. They work the same way. They just spin. They grind the rock away. You can make cabochons. You can polish Petoskey stones, whatever kind of rock you want to do. They serve the same purpose. Let's start out by talking about how these machines are cooled. So this one has a bucket down on the floor there, and there's a pump in it. Pumps the water up into here. It comes out through these valves. It drips down in the top, and it'll keep the wheel cool and also keep the dust down. And then it drains into another bucket over here. My last machine had an aquarium pump, and it had a little round thing. You'd stick it underneath here, and it'd squirt water up. The water sat in the bottom here, and it just recycled that water and squirted up onto the wheels. One nice thing about that is you don't have as much water to get rid of at the end. The bad thing about it is there's a possibility that a diamond could fall off one of the coarse wheels and then get blown back up onto a finer wheel later on, and that's going to scratch up your rocks. I think the chances of that are pretty slim, but it's still a possibility. Other people have a setup where it's a gravity feed, where they have the water hanging up from the ceiling somewhere or up on a stand, and then it just by gravity it comes down into valves that go onto the top. So that's the 3 ways that I know of that these are cooled. Most flat laps have a reservoir of water up high, and then just by gravity it drips water onto your disc. This one I made because it didn't come with one, so I went to Home Depot and bought stuff to put this together. So you just open the little valve here and it drips water onto the disc. Same thing over here. This one's missing the little hose, so I'd have to put a little piece of rubber tubing or something out here. You want the water to drip into the middle, and then because it's spinning, it flings out to the outside edges. One really big advantage to the cabbing machine, in my opinion, is that it's really convenient to use because you can go from wheel to wheel to wheel very quickly. All I have to do is turn the water off to one, turn it on to the next one, and I'm good to go. And I can go right down the line. If I make a mistake and miss a scratch or something, I can back up really easily and then go forward again, and it's just really, really quick. On the flat lap, when you want to change discs, you have to take off the old one. I will say on the newer ones, they have a nut that you can take off with your fingers. You don't need a wrench. But still, you gotta unscrew it, take this one off, grab the other one, put it on, put the washer back on, put the nut back on, and then tighten it up. I did see some had a magnetic disc, which would be much nicer to just be able to pull it off and put it on. But either way, it just takes a lot longer. And especially if you mess up and you have to go back a wheel, now you're not only annoyed that you've messed up and you've got scratches, but you got to take everything apart twice to get back to where you were again. Another advantage of the cab machine is it allows you to see your work really easily. So you typically stand in front of the machine, you hold your cab here, and you're looking down through here so you can see exactly where the wheel touches the cab. And one of the things that's hard to do is get your girdle line just right. I like to have that be a real straight line around there, and you can see it really easily on this machine. In my opinion, the biggest disadvantage of a flat lap is that you can't see your work very well. So you hold the cab like this, and you're looking down at the bottom of the cab. So you can't see where the lap hits the cab. So if you're trying to see your girdle line, it's down here. On this one, there's absolutely no way I can see it. Even if I put my head down and looked at it this way, I'm still looking at an angle like this, and I just can't see it. So what you do is you work at it, you check your work, and you just keep looking and seeing how you're doing. And you hope you don't go over the line. With the newer ones, the edge here is much lower. It's only just a little bit above it. And I did talk to some people on the rock tumbling hobby forums, and one person told me that she looks down, she just puts her head right down, and she looks at it for a little bit while she's going around the girdle, and then the rest of the time she's working from above. That being said, there's people that love flat laps and they do really good work on them. I just find it difficult that way, but if this is what you're used to and you learn how to do it that way, it's probably fine. Just be aware that it's harder to see. Now, there's something called a slant lap or a slant cabber, and it's built so that the lap is at a 45-degree angle, so it's kind of tipped up like this. And I talked to somebody else who stands behind that machine, and by standing behind it, with these sides being lower on the newer machines, they are able to look in between and see their work. So they're holding it up here, and like I said, by standing up in the back there and looking down, you can see in between. So that's another option to consider. This is a very convenient machine, but it comes at a price. It's really big and heavy. So I'm lucky enough to have a shop in my basement, and this just sits on this counter all the time. I never move it or put it away. It just sits out here. New flat laps are quite a bit smaller than these. The motor's mounted underneath, so you don't have the extra bulk of that. And then they come in 6 or 8-inch versions. This is an 8-inch. With the 6-inch, obviously it's going to be a little bit smaller, and everything's just in a little bit. So they're actually quite lightweight and portable machines. So if you're somebody that's living out in an RV, this would be a really good choice. Or maybe you're in an apartment, you don't have room to have this out all the time. You put it in a closet and pull it out and put it on the kitchen table when you're using it. This would be a much better choice in that situation. One other little thing that I like about this that may or may not be important to you is that I can cut concave curves on my cabochons. So here's a little heart-shaped pendant that I made for my wife, and I was able to cut and polish that right-hand side, which is just slightly concave. I can do a little bit sharper curve than that, but you can't do that on a flat lap. With this lap being flat, it's right in the name, there's no way to cut a concave part in your cab. These machines start at around $1,350 at the time of this recording, at least. That's actually the price for this machine with cheaper wheels on it. I've got the upgraded wheels, so this one costs more. And then they go up from there. You can pay quite a bit more for them. Flat laps start at about $650, and the price goes up from there. Another thing you really want to consider is how much it costs to replace the discs on these. Now these last quite a while, especially if you get the diamond ones. And the wheels on the other machine last quite a while. But you're going to find that the wheels on the cab machine are quite a bit more expensive than the laps for the flat lap. So just look into whatever machine you're getting and the wheels that you might want to replace it with, and think about that as part of the cost down the road. You might think that a flat lap is the perfect machine for polishing a large flat surface, like a whole slab, for example. But in my experience, it's really, really slow at polishing flat surfaces. You can polish like the back of a cabochon, something that's about that big. But if you're talking about polishing something much bigger, like this big, for example, it's just going to take you forever. The machine you want for that is a vibrating flat lap. And I don't have one of those, so I can't talk about it too much. But I think that's the machine you're looking for, so look into that if that's what you're interested in doing. To summarize, it's quick and convenient to switch to different grits on a cab machine, and more time consuming on a flat lap. Cab machines let you see what you're doing better than flat laps do. Cab machines are big and heavy, while modern flat laps are much more portable. You can get into slightly concave areas with a cab machine, but not with a flat lap. Cab machines are generally more expensive than flat laps, although there are some expensive flat laps too. After over a year of using my cab machine, I still really like it a lot. If you'd like to see a full review of it, click here and I'll see you over there.